Welcome to Siemens, welcome to the A32, welcome to Asia Pacific Week. It's actually great to have you here. And as I said, who's from Berlin in this room? Just to show you, oh wow, there's few of us, but if you need any advice on where to go out and what to do, we're all here for you. So, as I said, I was born here. I was born in Wedding actually, which is not too far in this direction. I did my apprenticeship before going to university, actually 1 kilometer in this direction in Siemensstadt. I then did my studies. I worked in mobile networks, and then I left for, well, not a startup. 16 years I worked at Cisco, and was asked 2 years to come back, which is quite a very different cultures, if you want to see, in some ways, shape or form, on how different types of corporate work together. But the most important part is today is how do corporate meet startups. And my next question will be, who in this room works or is with a startup actually, just to see. All right. Guys, leave your arm open. So would you want the startup, a part of the city you live in, to be called after your startup? Would you like that? Then raise your arm. Partly. Why am I saying this? Because you're in Siemensstadt. And Siemens is the oldest startup of Berlin, which is always what I try to say. We're 170 years ago. Siemens was created in Berlin in 1847. We were created in a backyard in Berlin, in Schöneberg. In a backyard because we didn't have garages at the time. There weren't any cars. And 50 years later, Siemensstadt was created to really bring together sort of the industrial and the living world here by the son of Werner von Siemens. So this is really, so if you want to know on how to have part of a town called after you or after your startup, that's why you listen to me today, right? The second thing, which is also interesting, is Werner von Siemens in 1847 created a startup in Berlin, and 10 years later he had his first deals in Asia. So Berlin and Asia, so it's 1857, was when the first time actually a Berlin startup went to Asia. So this is the second thing which we want to discuss also together, is how do startups from Berlin go to Asia, Asian startups come to Germany or come to Berlin. That's also something which is actually quite interesting. And it's impressive because this city here, which is, it's a whole town, a whole part of town called Siemensstadt, was created in 1897. And it had the idea to really be part of the Industrial Revolution and redefine actually what the Industrial Revolution was about. And the building you're in here, which is called A32, is called A32 because they were building automobiles. So this was a car, or was intended to be car manufacturing site, which never went to become a car manufacturing site, but more sort of capabilities which we had. So as you see, as industrial revolutions happen, startup come, they go to Asia, they come back, they create complete cities, and they redefine certain things which we actually put in place. So, and to keep that spirit, we created the A32 with the Hochschule für Wirtschaft und Recht, the Berlin School for Economic and Law, to actually have startups. So what we do is this is 6,000 square meters for startups, which get chosen from the university. They can be free here for a year. They get a grant. They can have their ideas, and there's great ideas from. I mean, we have Suncrafter, which is somewhere here, if we can see you. Great ideas from solar panels and bringing sort of recharging infrastructure up to. I think there is. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a couple of them. So, but any idea can be developed here, and if they're successful, they're allowed to graduate and go up, and if not, they can actually also go to other places. But the idea is that Siemens, as a corporate, wanted to create room, a lot of room, where you could actually use a corporate environment to be able to start as a startup. And the idea why we have Daimler, we have SAP, where do we have SAP? And a couple of other big companies, we will not be able to innovate on our own as we used to do in the past. We will need to partner. And if you're a startup, you also need to actually not only find a corporate as being very difficult and complicated, it also has this capability for you, the ability to scale. So if you want to go from one place to the next, that's what you actually do. We work with startups in Brooklyn and bring them all around the world with the technology, something they probably would have more difficulties in the world. So the idea why we're here today is, this is a Berlin startup which went to Asia very early. It redefined the industrial environment. It creates space for startups to grow, but it also creates spaces for us to grow and work together with you. Now, Klaas was very afraid that I would do some advertising, and I will do some advertising. So this space you're in here today, we're going to create something called Siemens 2.0. So it was created more than 100 years ago. We're actually going to take 600 million of Siemens money, but it's going to be more than 3 billion euros, which we're going to invest to redefine a smart city, but not any city, what we call a smart industrial city. The biggest production site of Siemens worldwide is actually in Berlin, in a city. And we're going to take this industrial capabilities we have and we're going to redefine it and make it probably, or we want to make it the most open and collaborative spaces in which we redefine on how to work together between large companies, small companies, between different technologies. We will have universities located here. And my advertising to you is we're doing this and it will be ready by 2030. We have Karina Rigby, which is American and from the MIT, but which runs this project for us. We will want to have some of you to actually be here. And our founder, Werner von Siemens, believed that science and engineering should be applied for the good of society. The reality is yes, you want to make money and you're laughing at the back, but that's a good side effect. But the reality is if this is just about making money, you're not going to get 170 years old. So you need to think on doing something which is a bit broader. So our purpose today is for you to create a network, to meet some of us, for us to meet some of you, to meet each other, to have new ideas, and really bridge this not this gap, but this differences when you're sitting in Jakarta or when you're sitting in Vietnam or when you sit in Berlin. How can you actually expand and really become global? How can you use the corporate networks to be able to do so? That's our intent of having you today. That's our intent on why we invited you to A32. And if we build really, really cool places up in Siemensstadt, my next question would be, would any one of you interested to talk to us to be part of this? So please raise your hands. We're going to take your numbers and we're going to make sure that we build you a high-rise just with your name on top of it to be able to sort of put it forward. But by 2030, you should have that success. So I wish every startup here in this room that a part of your city will be named after you. That's my wish. Not because it's glamorous, because it means that you have had an impact to society and you have an impact to the environment you're in. We're very global, but we're also very local companies. And this is a responsibility all of us have. Now, one person which for the last 20 years have made sure that Berlin and Asia comes closer together is going to give you more details of what we have planned today. So thank you for all of you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for coming even if it's raining out there. It's actually even better when it's sunshine. All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here today because we had the idea to do an event during the Asia Pacific Week in Jakarta. Cedrik, Neike and Klaas Neumann, when we were at the Good Times in Jakarta at the occasion of the Asia Pacific Conference of German Business last autumn. And we said, if we have Asia Pacific Week in Berlin, we have to do something here. And I was some months ago when I was here for visiting the new space, you could already still smell the paint because it was the day after the painting was finished in the startup space. And so very exciting moment. And for me, it's now very exciting to see it full of people, this hall, this space. And thank you very much for hosting us today, Cedrik, Neike. I'm very happy that we are here because the Asia Pacific Week focused since 2016 on startups, and I'm very happy that our long-term sponsors, as Siemens, as SAP, as Daimler, did not leave us because of that. And the trick is to link the corporates back to the startups, which they do anyhow, but to make it visible also during the Asia Pacific Week. And so I'm very happy that they are all our main sponsors are here to present how the corporates the German corporates offer their ecosystem, so internal company ecosystem for startups from Asia and from Germany to scale. Because of course it's not just innovation cooperation, is also a question on scalability. So that's a very important point for us. And another point that's very important for me is that Cedrik Neike, he's a perfect triangle between Berlin, innovation, startups, and Asia. So, and as Klaas Neumann is for SAP, and we need these people who are relevant in the German economy and to represent what we are thinking about to connect the ecosystems of Germany, of Berlin, to the ecosystem of Asia, because we know that the growth and innovation is shifting from the west to the east, so from US and Europe towards Asia. And if we want to be a relevant part of innovation in the future, we have to connect to Asia. So that's the reason we are here today during the Asia Pacific Week, the whole week, and especially today in Siemensstadt. And I'm very happy that you came here. Also, we know that's far away from the center of Berlin. Until we build a faster S-Bahn. But that's very interesting, because from Hackescher Markt, it's nearly exactly the same time to come here or to go to the arena in the east, because you have an S-Bahn, you have an underground directly here opposite the space. So in fact, but the psychology of Berlin startups is very much centered to Mitte and the eastern part, Kreuzberg, Neukölln. And even Treptow, we have been to Treptow too. It's very interesting. The Beta House Neukölln is in Treptow, and the factory Kreuzberg is in Treptow too. So that's very fascinating about the geography of Berlin. So, but now I would like to listen what is happening for the future here, how corporates can open the ecosystem for startups, how they bridge between Asia and Berlin. And so I think it's time for the panel.
Thank you, Rainer. Great stuff.